This is Bria Hartley right here, grinning from ear to ear with Sophie Cunningham smiling. Guys, it's despicable. It really is. There's a lot of people celebrating this injury. With Bria Hartley smiling and laughing over this incident of Sophie Cunningham being hurt, you can tell Bria Hartley, in my opinion, she launched herself into her knee.
Why did the refs swallow the whistle when Sophie Cunningham collapsed after a brutal collision? The entire Fever bench erupted. Coach Stephanie White blurted out, "Holy shit," and fans stormed social media with outrage. From that single moment, the game became personal. Indiana wasn't just fighting the Sun, they were fighting for respect. So how did a team with no real point guards and a star scorer on the bench turn anger into a historic overtime comeback? The answer isn't just one player, it's the story of grit, revenge, and one dagger three that silenced Connecticut. What happens when your team loses its toughest spark plug in a collision and the refs refuse to blow the whistle?
I kid you not. I saw that and was like, well, is it a bad time to tell you that I think she's roared to being the second most popular player in the WNBA? It's members of the old WNBA fandom, the ones that root for Paige Beckers and Angel Reese and Asia Wilson and all the usual damn suspects. The Indiana Fever has lost both of their top draws, both of their top billings that they had on the team on this thing. They're celebrating it, right? They even got pissed that Sophie Cunningham was called a superstar.
That was the reality for Indiana in the middle of the second quarter. Sophie Cunningham went down hard after contact, clutching her leg, and the arena froze. No whistle, no stoppage, just a stunned silence broken by the disbelief of teammates holding their arms out at the officials like, "Are you serious?" Fans in the lower bowl were on their feet demanding an explanation, but nothing came. Watching Cunningham slow to get up and limp to the sidelines without a call just ripped the energy out of the Fever's huddle. The shock only grew the longer she stayed in the locker room. Cunningham isn't a player who goes down easy. She's the one who dives for loose balls, fights through screens, and brings life to the team when things feel flat. So when she stayed out, it sent a message of how bad the collision was. And then you add the silence of no foul. It made it feel like the Fever weren't even getting basic protection.
Nobody knows who the hell y'all are if it wasn't for your dirty, cheap shots. A lot of those kind of players in this league, by the way. And look, they let's be honest, when it comes to popularity and fandom, y'all can't carry Caitlin Clark or Sophie Cunningham's water. That people wouldn't have a damn clue who the hell they were if they wasn't riding the coattails.
Social media blew up instantly. Her family fired off posts calling out the refs, and supporters echoed the same line. This wasn't an isolated miss, it was part of a bigger pattern. Think about what fans had already seen in recent weeks. Caitlin Clark took a knee to the groin that forced her to miss time, and there were voices saying defenders had crossed a line with her all season. Just a couple games earlier, JC Sheldon caught a nasty poke to the eye going up against tight pressure. Each time, fans pointed at how Indiana players weren't getting the same calls in the open floor.
I mean, that's despicable, folks. There's no other way to look at it. Yeah, how about this right here? That chick grinning. I said yesterday after she got hurt, Jesus, this is getting real tough to watch. After Caitlin Clark got slammed to the ground, and then this chick.
So when Cunningham got taken down with nothing called, Indiana supporters connected all the dots immediately. It wasn't just another accident. It felt like another night where their team was being left vulnerable. Even Coach Stephanie White lost her composure. Usually she keeps it measured on the sideline, but this moment dragged raw emotion out of her. You could see her yelling, pacing, throwing her hands, unable to mask how furious she was.
Do I think they'll do anything? Of course they won't. Because the old WNBA fandom will come for Kathy Engelbert, and the players will come for her as well. We going to just get radio silence from your leagues? Make an example out of one of these people, and it will stop. You guys are gutless. Well, your league's being hurt right now, Kathy Engelbert. I mean, you wanted to grow this league, but your league is being wounded all over again.
For a head coach, that's rare in the middle of a tight game, but this was beyond just arguing rotations or clock management. It felt like she saw her team slipping into a stacked deck where injury after injury met silence from officials. And here's the kicker. Indiana was already down every point guard they had. Caitlin Clark, outside. Erica Wheeler and Christy Wallace, also gone. Even rookie Sydney Colson and veteran Ari McDonald were sidelined.
The Fever and in the league doesn't deserve my eyeballs until Caitlin Clark comes back. There's a lot of people that I've seen that has come out and said, I'm not watching another game until Caitlin Clark comes back.
By the time Cunningham limped off, they essentially had 0 floor generals left. So the question was real, who even runs the show? You can't call simple sets without someone steadying the offense, and the Sun knew it. Suddenly, every possession looked shaky, with players forced to freelance without direction. That tactical crisis added weight to the emotional one, and you could feel it stacking up in the timeout huddles where frustration mingled with fear. But the bigger problem wasn't just losing a player, it was that creeping feeling of losing trust in the system built to protect players. For Indiana, the whistles had gone missing too many times. Add the pile of injuries with the collective anger, and that moment became more than a stoppage. It became the ignition. Cunningham leaving wasn't only heartbreak, it was the flick of a switch. The Fever now played with a different edge. It wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about payback. And you're about to see exactly how that spark carried into the fight back. Out of the chaos, one player found another level no one had seen before, and her eruption turned this bitter storyline into the biggest comeback in franchise history. How does a team go from being almost unrecognizable with injuries to putting up the highest scoring performance of the WNBA season? That's the crazy part of this story, because the Fever started this game looking like they had no chance. Kelsey Mitchell, the one reliable scorer left, barely scratched in the first half. She couldn't get into a rhythm, and every time she touched the ball, the Sun crowded her. People in the stands kept shaking their heads, wondering if Indiana had anything left to fight with. By halftime, Mitchell didn't look like the takeover player to save them. She hadn't played poorly, but she looked stuck, which only added to the doubts already circling after Cunningham went down. Connecticut knew exactly who to target. They put Mitchell in a cage with full court traps, picking her up at the inbound line and forcing her to give it up early. When she tried to push the tempo, they sent 2 defenders to cut her angles and smother her dribble. Every time she crossed into half court, it was like running into a wall. So Indiana had to let others step up because Mitchell couldn't even breathe with bodies glued to her all over the floor. Enter Odyssey Sims. Think about this. She wasn't supposed to even be here. The Fever signed her on a hardship contract just to fill bodies. Most players in that situation play a few minutes, spell the starters, and sit back down. But Sims broke the game wide open because she had the confidence to turn into a breaker of traps. She handled the ball under pressure, got it to Mitchell in better spots, and suddenly the offense had some flow. That small window Sims created gave Mitchell what she needed to flip a switch. And once that switch flipped, the whole arena felt it. Mitchell got rolling in the second half, and what happened next was unreal. 34 points after halftime, plus more in overtime. She attacked out of the pick and roll, hit pull-up jumpers, and drilled step backs that stopped Sun runs cold. When Connecticut tried to reach in and strip her handle, she punished them by feeding her teammates for easy scores. It wasn't just the volume, it was the timing. Every time the Fever needed life, Mitchell delivered it herself or set the table for someone else. Aaliyah Boston started pounding the boards, creating second chances, and Nalissa Smith hit the lane for energy buckets. Grace Berger kept the ball alive with hustle, but it was Boston and Howard who grabbed rebounds no one thought Indiana should have won. Meanwhile, Lexie Turner disrupted Connecticut's guards, switching onto different matchups and taking away their comfort spots. That defensive effort gave Indiana stops, and then Mitchell made sure those stops turned into points. But there was still one moment none of us saw coming. Lexie Hull, who had been almost invisible for most of the game, waiting in the corner, caught a swing pass with less than a minute on the overtime clock. She had taken barely a handful of shots all game, but with 44.9 seconds left, she rose up and drilled a corner 3 that shut the entire Sun crowd down. That was the dagger. dagger. That was the shot that breathed out everything Indiana had held in after the Cunningham play. The anger, the frustration, the doubt. Silence on the court except for Fever players exploding off the bench. This game ended up being more than just points on the scoreboard. It showed what the Fever are about: stubborn, gritty, and never backing down. People talk about talent, but this was heart, and that's what makes it a franchise-defining moment. If you think Kelsey Mitchell belongs in the MVP race and Lexie Hull should finally get credit for her impact, share this story. Keep the spotlight on what Indiana pulled off. The refs may have swallowed the whistle when it mattered most, but the Fever's comeback roared louder than any call could.